Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is where I get to chat with people that I've connected with in the world of arts and entertainment over the years. And today, we're very happy to have with us, all the way from Asgard, Jon Mykl Thor. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Tommy. How are you? It's great to be on your show.
Well, it's great to have you, yeah. And it looks like we're kind of rounding a corner now with this COVID thing. So I know I've got one festival show booked myself in the summer, and hopefully by the time your new album, which we'll talk about a little bit more in detail later, comes out, things will be back to that live show scene that we all miss so much. Anyway, I know that you're originally from Vancouver. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, so somehow you went from being a bodybuilding champion, having won both Mr. Canada and Mr. USA titles, to being the banner or flag waving guy carrying the banner for Muscle Rock. So how did you actually go from the bodybuilding into the music, Thor?
Well, I always felt that when I listened to the music, back then it was in the late 60s when I was really getting into competitive bodybuilding as a young man, very early, and I was a teenager, like 13 and 14. And I would listen to Led Zeppelin when I was working out. And whenever I listened to Led Zeppelin, I started going crazy, and I went past the pain barrier. I would just keep training. I got super pumped. And people were taking notice that, this guy's, got a baby face. I was 13, 14 years old, but had the body of a much, let's say a 20-year-old, 21-year-old. And that's when I figured that, the music had something to do with it. And it just made me train harder because I'd hear the riffs and I'd start going berserk. And I worked myself into a frenzy and got super pumped. And nowadays, if you see the exercise classes, it's full of music. But at first, back in those days, you go into a gym and all you heard was the clanking of the barbells. I changed that.
Absolutely you did. Yeah, you pretty much introduced the world to Muscle Rock. Now, I understand that you started the concept of Thor as a rock warrior in 1973, so you've been doing this for a long, long time. Now, I'm curious. I've been an avid martial artist for most of my life, but I've never been into bodybuilding per se. So I'm just curious where you got the idea to do things like bending solid steel bars with your teeth, having cinder blocks smashed on your chest, and my favorite, blowing up the hot water bottles. Where did you get these ideas from?
Well, I felt I had to have a calling card, and I was very impressed with Alice Cooper. And he would hang himself, and he'd do all these theatrics at the concerts, and then Kiss, of course. They, breathing. Gene Simmons was breathing fire, and it was the time of theatrics then. The bigger the show, the better in the 70s, early 70s. So I just thought, hey, I need to do something like that with my show, and not just be a lead vocalist, but I was also playing bass in the band, and I said, I got to be this character like a Hercules that could do superhuman feats on strength, because I already had the muscles. So why not, do some of these strength feats? And I had a great friend, Doug Hepburn, who was at one time the world's strongest man. And he showed me how to bend steel in my teeth. He himself could bend railroad spikes with one hand and dimes. And so he showed me the technique. It's not just strength, but there's a technique to it. And then Chuck Sipes, who was Mr. Universe, he showed me how to blow up and explode hot water bottles. Again, you show your lung power, but there's still a technique to it. And then I found out about doing concrete blocks. That's more of a karate type of thing. I was getting into karate, and I would see these guys smashing bricks with their fists, and then having sledgehammers knocked off their chest without breaking their ribs. And when I first tried it, I actually had my ribs broken. But then I got to where I could actually do the strength feat without breaking my ribs. But I just thought it was a great thing to do. And I tried other things like ripping license plates in half, telephone books, all that kind of stuff. And I just wanted to have the biggest show I could do, the loudest rock, and just give the audience the best entertainment value I could possibly give them.
Cool. Well, you certainly did that. I know you certainly caught my attention when I saw you playing all those years ago with Frank Soda and the Imps. That was a show. And I understand that it just keeps getting better.
Yeah, we still do theatrics. And speaking of Frank Soda, I think he's personally one of the greatest guitar players in the world. He's absolutely phenomenal. And even back then when we were on tour as Thor and the Imps, I used to, I don't know if you remember when you saw the show, but I would lift Frank Soda up over my head with one hand while he was playing guitar. So we would incorporate the combination of rock and, shtick or rock and muscle back then.
Yeah, I think I do remember seeing that. And man, you got to have a lot of trust among each other to do a stunt like that.
Yeah, it's like trapeze artists, right? You got to have the trust because you can get hurt. If I tripped and fell off the stage, Frank could have gotten hurt quite badly, but we trusted each other and we knew we could do it.
Absolutely, yeah, that was pretty cool. Now, I remember I think it was your first release on a major label was Keep the Dogs Away. You recorded that in 1976 to fairly wide acclaim. And good on you, you somehow managed to license that to RCA and have it re-released in 1978. So how did that come about?
Yeah, that originally, though, I did have some releases on, independently, as the Thor persona developed. It goes back to 50 years ago. That's why we're celebrating 50 years of Thor, because I was experimenting with the Thor persona way back in the late 60s, in 1970. And we released product. We tried different names. One was Centaur, but it still has a Thor character within the show. And then it came to Mykl Body Rock. Mykl Body Rock actually became quite popular when we were on tour, and we released an album through Mykl Body Rock. And so we had numerous releases before we did a major deal with RCA Records, where we licensed it to them. And that's because, some scouts had heard of our popularity. We were packing the places in Toronto. And we started out in Vancouver. Then Frank and I took the train, across Toronto to try to make it big. And we did the whole circuit, like that's when you saw us, probably back in North Bay there. We did Kapuskasing, Timmins, Ontario, you name it. We played it in Ontario. And we just kept going until the fans demanded a record, demanded more stuff. And we put out a record as Thor and the Imps called Muscle Rock. And then it was heard by the scouts, as I say, the A&R, and said, wow, we got to do something with these guys. And we were gaining in popularity. Thus, Keep the Dogs Away happened.
Right, yeah, and it was quite commercially successful. Your story sounds a lot like those of other successful artists. And when I talk to some of the industry moguls, if you will, the guys in suits, the one common theme that they preach is you got to put in the work, and you certainly did that.
Yes, absolutely. You did an interview with Alex Mayer. Back in those days, just before we did the deal with RCA, I presented Muscle Rock, the album, to Alex Mayer, and he passed on it. But he gave us encouraging words. He said, you guys definitely have something. I don't know what it is, but you have something. And I just took that encouragement and then get offers suddenly. We appeared with Kiss at Maple Leaf Gardens, and somehow that got another kind of surge of a buzz going on in the Toronto area. Yeah, so, the labels came a-calling, and we went with RCA, so it was an exciting time.
Right. I heard the Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens story from the old record promo guy, Nick Panasico.
Oh, yeah, Nick. He was a great guy, Nick. I think he ended up, when I went on my own and Frank Soda went on his own, I think he signed Frank Soda to Quality Records, I believe.
That could be. I'll have to ask him. I actually see him every now and then, too. He's living up in Ipperwash on Lake Huron.
Yeah, say hello to him.
Yeah,
say hello from Thor.
Yeah, I bring him fish and I bring him firewood. So I'll be seeing him before too long, and I'll pass that along.
Well, you know what? Those are essential to life. You could live off fish and keep warm with firewood and have some water, and you can just live off that.
Absolutely.
And the land too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, 1984, you performed at the Marquee in London, England, impressing
That's right.
a
Yes.
huge crowd that included Jimmy Page. Now, how did that feel from your side, knowing that Jimmy Page was there and that he was excited about the show?
Well, again, as I said before, I used to work out to Led Zeppelin. They were like this is back when I was dreaming of doing something in the rock business, just dreaming about it. And then all of a sudden, here it is, 1984. I'm talking about the late 60s as a young teenager. And then all of a sudden, 1984, fast forward, we're playing in front of London, England at the famous Marquee where Bowie played, the Yardbirds, all my favorites. And Jimmy Page was in the audience. And I was so excited, that he was there. And I wanted to talk to him after. And so we had a special party, post-concert party. And I asked him how, the show was, how he liked my show. And he fell asleep. I don't know. So I never got an answer from him. I guess he had a full day, and it went into the night, and this is about 3 a.m, but it was, I think he liked the show because I saw him out there rocking, and the other, Metal Goddess and all these other bands are out there, even Whitesnake, the guys from Whitesnake. I mean, it was a real eventful evening, and we just loved it.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, your story about Jimmy Page falling asleep is in line with the story about the Beatles meeting Elvis. I'm sure you've heard about that. They were just dying to meet Elvis, and they go to Graceland, and they talk to him for maybe a minute, and he just passes out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very similar story.
Nice to kind of meet you, sort of. Yeah. So I know that you continued to license your songs with other labels for some time, and Albion Records released several. But you retired from live performances in 1987, and then you started producing films, and you started your own label. So how did that come about?
Well, that's great you mentioned about Albion Records. I was just thinking about Di Davies, who was the CEO of Albion Records back in the 80s. And, of course, he had the Stranglers. Remember the Stranglers? They were quite popular at one time out of the UK there. But he was great. He had an incredible team, and they had a division called Ultra Noise because metal was coming in pretty strong around that time. And so we were over there in England, and he released some singles for us. And one was Let the Blood Run Red, kind of a weird song. But over in England at that time especially, any genre could work. They had Rollin' Rat, which was a puppet going to Hong Kong. It was on the charts. Or Divine. Remember Divine?
Yeah.
They had all kinds of artists. And then Let the Blood Run Red charted quite high in the rock charts. And then as a follow-up, we had a song called Thunder on the Tundra, which went number 1 on the rock charts, and over Alice Cooper, over Van Halen's Panama, and also we topped Wasp's F Like a Beast. I don't want to swear in your show. So we were quite excited about that, that we actually went to number 1 and had a chart topper.
I'll bet you were excited. Really, yeah. So how did you get into producing films?
Yeah, well, I've always been interested in films. Even when I was a teenager in Vancouver, the film industry was knocking at that time, and I had an appearance in a movie called Christina, and another one in Brown Star Conspiracy, which starred George Papard. This was about 1971. I had just won Mr. Teenage America, and there were agents that wanted me to get into movies. And I was a big fan of Steve Reeves, who was a Mr. Universe. He played Hercules and Numerous and Goliath and all these other superhero type characters, mythological characters. So I definitely, wanted to be in movies. And I was torn twixt and between to concentrate more on rock or more in movies. But in the end, I ended up doing both. I got offers for example, to be in a few movies like Recruits. That was 1986. So I still kept making records, but I was also doing movies, like especially around 85, 86. It was Recruits, which won a silver award in England for top video sales, or not, like even back in the VHS days, right? And then there was some other movies I did, where I produced the movies actually, or co-produced with the great John Fasano. He was the director and became very successful. A crazy movie called Rock and Roll Nightmare. Also with Adam West and Tia Carrere, I did a movie. It's like Batman meeting Thor. I did a movie called Zombie Nightmare. But then I would also do the soundtracks. I produced the soundtracks and write songs for the movies. And still to this day, there's a whole new generation that just love these movies. They watch them religiously, and they love the music. And then you could say the music, certain songs, like We Accept the Challenge, became hits just because of these movies.
Right. Now, I understand that in 2011, you toured Scandinavia with Frank Soda, and that must have been an experience touring as Thor in Scandinavia. But first, this very important public service announcement. Hey, I got my first dose of the vaccine, and I really think that if we want to get summer back, get our festivals and our live music back, we need to get our first dose. If enough of us do this, we can have our freedom back. Yes, do this. And I know a lot of my famous friends agree with me.
Hi, this is Earl Johnson from Moxie. I know we've got a lot of friends and fans out there in the upper ages, and believe me, get a shot, get a vaccine. I did recently, and it gives you some peace of mind because nobody knows how the world's going to change even further.
Thanks, Earl from Moxie. Now back to the show where Thor was about to describe his tour of Scandinavia.
Yeah, well, we went over there in 2009 and played major festivals. And they were like Sweden Rocks. There was, Muscle Rock, which I was part of putting together. And then there was Sauna Open Air Festival. They were huge successes for us. Like, tremendous amount of people came, over there. There were still a lot of fans, younger fans who never saw Thor in the 80s, and they wanted to see Thor. So that was 2009, and then the promoters wanted us back again in 2011. And so I approached Frank Soda, and I said, hey, you want to go over to Europe, and we can, redo the Thor and the Imps show and play some of the songs we used to play, like Immigrant Song, Action, Immigrant Song by Zeppelin, Action by the Sweet, all the stuff we used to do, along with some originals, of course. We promote a new album as well. And it was just unbelievable. It was phenomenal. It was so much fun to connect with Frank again and redo some of the stunts we did back in the old days.
Yeah, but that was a lot of fun. There's a few things about you that the general public probably isn't as aware of as about your body rock and the music. For example, the Vancouver Millionaires hockey team. You resurrected I think it was the only team that Vancouver ever won the Stanley Cup with around 19.
That's correct. Yes, I resurrected them from the dead. In 1936, the arena they played in, it was called Denman Arena in Vancouver, an old wooden barn. The seating capacity was about 10,500. Of course, they won the Stanley Cup in 1915, but within the hallowed halls of Denman Arena was all their sweaters and, whether they had mothballs in or whatever, and in awards and different things. But in 1936, the whole place burnt down to ashes. So many years, no one ever saw an original sweater of the Vancouver Millionaires. There was the legend kind of, still there, almost forgotten pretty much about that. Vancouver actually did win a Stanley Cup, believe it or not, and it was in 1915. So I am a big fan of hockey, a huge fan of hockey, and I said, you know what, I'm going to bring the Vancouver Millionaires back and glorify them again. And that was a passion for me. And so I brought them back, and I made sweaters again that were they're duplicates of the ones that were destroyed in the famous Denman Arena fire. And I brought the whole, like I would combine things that no one has done before, combine sort of an event which was sports and entertainment. I put these events together, rock concerts, and also combine it with hockey excitement, like bringing back the Vancouver Millionaires. And I did made videos and songs about the Millionaires and Cyclone Taylor, who was one of the greatest players of all time. So anyhow, one thing led to another, and the NHL got wind of it, and they saw what I was doing, and things got bigger and bigger, and the Canucks wanted to get involved, and I made a deal with the Vancouver Canucks and the NHL, for them to purchase my rights to the Vancouver Millionaires. And the rest is history.
Right on. I've got a couple more questions for you before we get into what you're currently doing, but one is from a question from a fan. In fact, my 7-year-old nephew watched your appearance on Merv Griffin with me last night, and he wants to know, Thor, why is your hammer so small?
Well, back in those days, 1976, I was just pretty much developing the character, and so, even the early days, I didn't even use a hammer or hold a hammer, then I grabbed some ideas of, okay, well, maybe I'm portraying a thunder god character, so maybe I should have a hammer. But, the hammer became bigger over the years. Obviously, on the Merv Griffin show, that it looks more like a mallet, like a meat mallet.
Yeah.
But I had to, it's all in due course, right? You sort of find a character that you're developing, and then you get better and better and understand it more. And I've had some pretty huge hammers. I've had like gigantic hammers, like Super Mario later on, that were gigantic. And I would walk out with these hammers, and I squished giants, like guys on stilts would come on stage, and I take these gigantic hammers and hit them with it as part of the theatrical show, the Frost Giants against Thor, right? So I would just say Thor was developing at the time.
Right, and I'll have to find some images of you with the larger hammer to show little Willie later on. Anyway, I know that Rob Reiner and Steve Lips-Kudlow from the band Anvil were hugely impacted in a positive way from their documentary, The Story of Anvil. And I know that in 2015, you had your own documentary, I Am Thor. So I'm wondering, did that give you a huge boost, or did it make much of a difference at all?
No, it gave a huge boost. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Now I'm making movies. Since then, I don't know how I put out maybe 20 albums, since that. I signed a new record deal because of that movie, and so many things happened. The movie was a huge success. It won a lot of awards. It was a big deal for me. It gave me another resurgence.
Cool. So now I want to know a little bit about what's happening today with Thor. I know you have a brand new album that is soon to be released, Thor Alliance, and I've listened to it, and it's pretty awesome. So what can you tell us about the new album release?
I'm quite excited about it. Thank you very much for your critique of it, that you like it. I appreciate that. And I'm getting some really good reviews back from people on it. I'm very proud of it. I can tell you that I co-produced it with Kevin Stewart Swain, and also Frank Soda plays on one of my favorite cuts, along with some really incredible guests, Chris Holmes, Ross the Boss, Nina from Sound of Thunder, and just Danko Jones. There's a great Canadian for you, Danko Jones. There's so many wonderful people. Al Harlow from Prism, and another great Canadian, that played on this record overseas. It's people from England, people from Sweden, people from South Korea. It truly was an alliance from around the world. And as far as the cover goes, Timo Wuorres painted this incredible cover. And then we have an alternate cover painted. He's from Germany, Timo Wuorres, and also from England, Simon Williams. He did an alternate cover, which is pretty amazing. So what I'm saying is it was an alliance. I'm very proud of the record. It comes out July 16th. I think it's probably the best work, that even my best album of all the 30 some odd albums I've done in my life, going back 50, so it's 50 years of work. If I retire after this album, because, I'm getting on a little bit, but I don't feel it. I feel still like a 20-year-old man. If I retire, I would be proud. I'd say, you know what? I topped it off with a good piece of work. I feel that I could walk away and hang up the hammer and cape and say I was proud of this career.
Well, that is one of your best albums, I have to say, and it's going to be released this summer. Is it July 6th?
July 16th.
16th. And where can people get it when it's released?
All over the world and the universe.
So it'll be on all the major platforms then?
Yes, all the major platforms. It's going to have worldwide distribution. Cleopatra Records are tremendous. They're one of the greatest labels in the world right now, and they have just amazing distribution. So it'll be on everything. There'll be hard copy, vinyl, different colors, CDs, Spotify, you name it, we'll be out there.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that release, and we'll have to try and do a little bit more of a push for you from this end as well when it happens. Now, I also understand there's a couple of things here that I've seen from you lately. One is that you appear to be in maybe the best physical shape of your life. And from what I gather, this was inspired by you having a new movie role.
I don't know if I'm in my best physical shape of my life, because when I won, Mr. Universe, Mr. North America, maybe that's when I was in my best physical shape of my life. I was in, obviously, because, you're training for a contest like Schwarzenegger. I mean, he's in great shape right now, but he has to train according to his age and not overdo it. I know too many guys who have had heart attacks trying to train like they did when they're in their 20s. But, Arnold is not like how he was when he won Mr. Olympia. He was massive and pumped. And, now he's got to be careful. He's had, 3 heart surgeries, but he's still in shape. So I'd like to think that I'm still in shape, especially for my age. I'm in pretty good shape, but I feel really confident with this new movie. I got to be in shape for this new movie. It's a high action thriller, and there's martial arts in it. And not that I'm the greatest martial artist or anything like that. I think you're a top martial artist, so I'm pretty good at sports and athletics, and I play a general, and he gets into some battles, and so there'll be a lot of fighting scenes. It's going to be a lot of action, a lot of fun. It's going to be a great movie.
Now, is there still a working title, or do they have a final title?
Oh, Pact of Vengeance.
Okay.
That's the name of it, Pact of Vengeance. It's produced by Killer Wolf Films, and the director is Len Kabasinski. And I'm going to be also writing some songs for the movie as well. And we got Ted Jedlicki, band member, is going to be in the movie, and also writing some songs. Then John Lydell, Tom Croxton, Matt Hamilton, they're all actually going to be in the movie as well. Kevin Stewart Swain and Rick Fabio. So all these guys who are in the band are also going to be in the movie. Everybody was gung fu fighting. It was quick as lightning.
Oh,
there
man,
you go.
Thanks. I'll have that stuck in my head for the next week and a half. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Boy, oh, boy.
That's
I
it,
don't
man.
care. Disco still sucks, man. But anyway, speaking of disco sucks, just one more thing. I'm sure that a lot of people aren't aware that, or maybe they are. I wasn't aware of the fact that you wrote the title song for the movie Fubar.
That's right. Fubar is a super rocker. Fubar. Man, that was so much fun doing that movie, like being involved with it and writing the song for it. It's great. It's a great fun movie.
Yeah, no doubt. And the actor who plays the Fubar character is actually working right now with the Trailer Park Boys on their SwearNet.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he's working with them on their SwearNet show. That's pretty funny, too. Anyway, Jon Mykl Thor, I don't have any more questions for you. So I want to thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to be on the show here. And until next time, greetings from Earth to Asgard.
It's my pleasure to be on your show, and I can say to you, behold the hammer!
That was fun. I think it was around 1979 that I first saw Thor and the Imps live on stage up in North Bay, Ontario at the infamous St. Regis Hotel. Oh boy, all these years later he's still banging weights and recording albums and acting in movies. What a life this guy has had so far. And hey, don't forget, July 16th is the release date of Thor Alliance on record and every other media that you can think of. Now, without further ado, here is, from the Alliance album, We Need Muscle Rock.
Toughest of roll, the strongest of grooves. It's what we know. We're dancing the crowd. We're here in the now. We make them scream and we make them shout. We pay the toll for rock and roll. Raise your glass and shout. Go! Hear the sound. Shout the crowd. We play it loud and we play it proud. We need to rock. Muscle rock, farewell! You crank up the amps and steal with our hands. Our beats of strength will rock your world. The ultimate lift, the world's gonna drift. The virus blind down with fuel vinyl fun down. Louder than that fire, we stand together. Flexing our might, we party tonight. We're coming to town, you can't keep us down. No matter the muscles who rock the town. We need to rock. We need to roll. Muscle rock, Carolyn. You the strongest of grooves. It's what we know. Louder than ever, we all stand together. We need to rock. We need to roll. Muscle rock, Carolyn. You we need to rock.
Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including producing, editing, guest acquisition, etc. All rights reserved. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends was written and recorded by Tommy Solo with a little help from my friends in the night crew. And hey, if you like the show, why not subscribe? Until next time, cheers.